You've helmed the group now for more than 3 decades, and you've seen your business grow manyfold. You have operations all over the world. When you look at the external environment today with multiple wars and the AI disruption, shipping route blockages, and so on, do you find this moment uniquely challenging, or when you run a large diversified group, is this kind of par for the course?
Well, I think all of us know that in the last few years, the world economy has gone through more than it ever probably has in the past. You had wars, you had a pandemic, you had interest rate hikes, you had tariff hikes, energy shocks. But despite that, the economy, the global economy has grown. In I think 26, it was at 3%, projected at 3.4% for this year. Um, So clearly, the economy, world economy, is growing. Growth has probably slowed down, but it seems to have grown shock absorbers. And all of us, economies, corporations, have learned to deal with a lot more stress. And the biggest source of that stress, Shatrajit, as we all know, is geopolitics. And there too, the global order is changing. Um, there are no more perma friends or perma enemies. There are only perma issues. It's an a la carte way of working. So you choose your partner depending on the issue at hand. You could have a partner on one issue who could be on the other side of the table on another issue. Uh, but I think that the way for a business to grow and thrive is to be resilient and also keep growing, be on a track of growth. We have actually played a contrarian view here. We've taken a contrarian view and we've used this period to grow um, pretty much across the board, across businesses, across our new growth platforms, um, across our more traditional businesses as well. It's been a two-part strategy, so to speak. For our overseas businesses, we've taken the view, and this has been for a few years now, that we are a multinational, but we also want to be multi-local. So as opposed to having operations in one or two places, as in manufacturing in one or two places and distributing to the rest of the world, we are now in a situation where we are multi-local, which means that we set up plants for our manufacturing businesses close to our consumers, wherever they are in the world, so that you have supply chain flexibility. You're not impacted by, let's say, tariff wars, for example, or geopolitical vagaries. On the Indian front, our businesses have grown tremendously. And I think the India businesses, whilst they have great teams and have been run with, great um, precision, so to speak, I think their performance is really a reflection of what's happening with the Indian economy and the India growth story. I think you need a strong economy to produce strong businesses. So, very often people talk about China plus one for India. And whilst that's a convenient shorthand, so to speak, I think it's intellectually very lazy. I think what we should be talking about now is the world plus one for India. I think we have all it takes. We've got a track record. And I think that we really can be a growth engine for the entire world in so many different ways.
Kumar, one of the criticisms of Indian business groups now is that while there is widespread consensus about the bright long term economic prospects of India, domestic capex has been weak. You have invested a lot, your group has invested a lot, and I want to come to that in a moment. But what do you think are the factors that are holding people back from doing more in domestic capex?
So I think that the rhetoric here probably lags the actual facts on the ground. The big industrial houses have all been, investing very hectically. I just read the other day that the latest RBI report says that Advances to corporates from banks has gone up by 20% compared to last year in the last couple of months, and that is pretty evenly spread between small and medium enterprises as well. So I think that this is something that's starting to change. I think that there is an issue about an aspect about it which I would call capital discipline, where obviously you would take a view on an investment basis, so many factors: returns, volatility, industry, what's happening in the industry in the world. But I don't think we should confuse capital discipline with conviction about India. I find that conviction about India is perhaps the highest I've seen it for a long time.
I think, I mean, one of the factors I looked at was when you look at where we've seen a tremendous time for IPOs in the last 2 or 3 years. But when you look at where the money is getting utilized, the monies that are raised from IPOs, a lot of it is going into secondaries or giving returns to existing investors, and not a lot of it is going into the actual economy. And that's a pretty diversified trend. But as you're saying, I think I fully agree that the sentiment is intact, but hopefully we'll see a little bit more action in terms of investments. Um, could you? I want to come to your group now. You have significantly invested in new businesses as well as in capacity expansion. Could you give us a quick overview of what your group has been up to over the last few years, and what lies ahead for you?
So, like I said, Shrutajit, we took a contrarian view in the last 3 years and actually grew our businesses pretty aggressively. As of now, we have a $30 billion plan that's playing out. So this is not headline farming, as one could call it. This is actually, money going into the ground or groundbreaking and new teams coming together depending on the business that we're talking about. To give you a rough sense, since you and some people from the audience at least would know different companies, it's about $10 billion for Hindalco, six for um, uh, Telecom for increasing our network of 4G and 5G. 2 billion for we've just made an acquisition in the renewable space that takes us up the pecking order in that industry by several notches. A billion for green fiber, which is fiber but now made green in terms of the energy that's being used. Another billion for carbon black. Carbon black is a specialty chemical that's used majorly in tires and anything that's black. So, say for example, ink as well. Uh, interestingly, for carbon black, for example, we are investing in increasing capacity in Hungary, in India, and Thailand. Again, going back to being close to the consumer and multi local as opposed to just being multinational. So that's quite a sweep of industries, and I think that that again is reflective of the faith that we have in the Indian economy and its future.
Kumar, I don't think anyone has ever accused you of trying to headline farm. If anything, our complaint usually is that you don't come out and say enough. But anyway, I'm very, very glad you're here today. Look, the ease of doing business and a steady and predictable regulatory regime is very critical to, um, um, you know, very critical to economic growth. You operate businesses in a number of different regulatory environments, number of different countries. How does India compare in those terms?
So that's an interesting question, and I'm glad you asked it because uh, every country, every economy has its own issues, has its own pain points, its choking points. Uh, we are putting up a large plant in an advanced economy where we were allotted land by the local authorities. We spent 6 months of intense work. Just before we were to break ground, we had to change our site because of uh, largely because of environmental reasons. So I think that we aren't the only people who have issues like this, issues like land, environment, judicial, local laws, uh, almost across the board, and we have a presence across practically across the globe. You will have issues that come up, um, you know, uh, that a lot of the times are of similar nature. Sometimes they're peculiar to the country that we're talking about. So I don't think we should be feeling particularly sort of dejected about ease of doing business. I think that, like I said, every country has its own pain points. But having said that, I think in the last decade, a lot has been done by the government. Financialization, you talk about um, tax reforms, um, so much has happened that is digitization. And I think that the ease of doing business in the last decade has gone up tremendously compared to where we were before that.
We're seeing the use of tariffs as a key instrument of control by certain rich countries. Do you think this will lead domestic businesses to invest in overseas manufacturing capacity rather than making it here and exporting? And is that indeed the intent behind these moves?
I think that you're right. Probably that is the intent. But I don't think it works like that. I think companies would have a far more nuanced approach to investing. You can't, for example, invest in an aluminum facility in the US just because there are tariffs on aluminum exported from India, for example, theoretically. I mean, the cost structure is different, the capital required will be different, the kind of people that you require to work in that kind of environment may be there, may not be there. I don't think that's something that can practically happen. I'm saying this again because it's relevant. I think the route that we have taken, and this kind of predates what's happened in the last few years, of being local for our local customers. And I'll give you two examples. Novelis, which is the largest producer of aluminum rolled products, we are putting up for the North American market a $5 billion greenfield facility in Alabama, in a place called Bay Minette. That is to serve for aluminum roll product supply for cans, as also for auto. Auto requires more of lightweighting, and that is being put up only to specifically serve our North American clients. It won't go and sort of move into Europe or into South America. So that's a large investment in a new economy for us relatively. We haven't made a greenfield investment of $5 billion at one location anytime in the past. It's normally been more phased out. Another example is carbon black. Like I said a little while ago, we are investing. We have 16 plants in 12 countries. We've chosen to invest in three. Um, Again, logic being close to customers as opposed to manufacturing in one or two locations and distributing around the world. So that's what our response has been.
Novelis is a tremendous story. For those of you who might not be familiar, the U.S. auto industry's dependence on Novelis is so large that when they had a fire in one of their plants, I'm reliably told that the production of Ford and many other major marquees suffered a great bit. But I think you managed to, keep the supply going, and the company recovered from it pretty quickly. You pulled the plans for Novelis to go public 2 years ago. Is it time now to revive those plans?
So, we pulled back the plans at that time because we weren't getting the kind of value discovery that we thought or hoped we would, or we were told we would. And that was the only reason why we might have
Never
wanted to.
believe bankers.
Yeah, well, I didn't say that. But there was no other reason to want to list. As of now, we are focused on commissioning this large plant I was talking about. $5 billion is a large sum of money, and I think that a lot of the future of the company depends on how fast we can commission and ramp it up and fill up capacity. We have no compulsion to do an IPO. I mean, there's no need for us to raise funds, so I don't see that happening now at all.
With your strong exposure to commodities, you're in a real financial sweet spot right now. We saw Hindalco's record profits in one quarter, 7,000 crore of net profit, quite tremendous. Congratulations. So while the business globally is doing amazingly well, your you know, domestically, especially in aluminum and cement, you are seeing more competition. Especially in cement, you're seeing a strong player emerging by consolidating a lot of assets. What's your game plan? How do you plan to address the rising competition at home?
So, we are pretty used to competition. And I'll tell you why. My father went out and made large investments in Southeast Asia. This is large investments on the ground, not trading investments in Southeast Asia way back in the 70s. And at that time, Southeast Asia had every large player across the globe invested and playing in the market there. That gave us exposure to multi global, multinational competition, and that has pretty much stayed in the DNA of our company. So, competition is not a problem. I mean, the part of running a business, an important part is to compete and compete well, and risk taking is an important part for business leaders. You might as well not be in business otherwise. So I think our approach has been rather simple. We believe in running our own race. It's always good to have a view on competition only from the rear view mirror. But I think that we have focused on what we know best, which is running plants, which is um, investing deeply into ecosystems. If you look at the ecosystems in terms of suppliers, dealers, distributors, they're deeply penetrated in these businesses across the country. We have very deep customer relationships. We've increased capacity exponentially. I think that when you've been in industries for a long time, there is an accumulated knowledge that you have the advantage of. You have institutional memory, as I would call it. So I think that we're pretty much focused on running our own race. There is no business that's a territory of any one player. Anyone can make a foray into any business today. And I think that you have to focus on your strengths. And like I said, very deep relationships across the ecosystem, across the length and breadth of the company. Um, my father had said very famously back in I think 93, you know, don't be scared of competition. He meant the foreign competition then, which was just coming into the country. Don't be afraid of competition. Let the competition be afraid of you. We're not wanting the competition to be afraid of us, but we're certainly not afraid of them.
Wonderfully put. Kumar, coming to um, domestic capital markets, we are seeing some amount of exit by global investors, and you're seeing a tremendous amount of entry by domestic retail investors. What do you think this means in the long run for India's economy and its businesses?
I think that's a very positive structural change that's happened. It means that domestic investors know and understand India much more and much better, much more deeply than foreign investors. Is my broad assumption. I think that's the correct assumption to make. I think that if you don't need to depend on foreign flows and their ebbs and ebbing out and flowing back in, that's a very advantageous position to be in. You have, which means a deeper and deeper financial market, and you're sort of self-dependent on institutional investors, retail investors within the country. For foreign investors, there are so many other issues at play: valuations, currency, geopolitics, geopolitical issues. Um, I don't think they can be away for too long, and I think that in the medium term, they probably will come back into India. There's too much that's happened on the global front just now, but I think this new development or this um, sort of new positive element of growth in the economy, which makes us self-sufficient by having very deep or much deeper financial markets than we did in the past, is a very big positive.
Talk us through your journey in telecom, which is a sector where you have perhaps faced your greatest challenge. There have been a lot of ups and downs there, restructuring, government coming in, etc. Could you talk us through? what the journey has been like, and where do you think that business is going to go now?
So that's a lot of water under the bridge, Shutrajit. I don't think it makes any point to go there because it's all in the past. I think at the moment we have been given relief by the government, which is more sectoral relief because it is important to have telecom to, for example, fulfill the ambition of Digital India, which is one of the government's most important missions and programs. I think we're in a phase of build out now. We're building out 4G and 5G capacity. We've seen a more than a few years of not having the funds to be able to build out and really employ capex. And I think the next step is to raise funding with banks, which seems to be going very well. We can't be a number one and number two player there. I mean, I think we're a little late now for that. But I think we can be a very credible and profitable number three in the telecom business.
In a group like yours, being able to attract and hold on to top tier talent is key. What's your approach to talent?
So talent for us is very important. I mean, I've been the only one in the family who's been running the group for the last 30 years. My children have come in only in the last 2 years, 3 years. So we are pretty much a people's run organization, as we call it. Talent for us is very important, but I think that we genuinely believe in um, seeing talent grow, whether it's through job rotations. We, for our top talent, which is top performing and top potential, we would normally like them to operate at least across 3 countries in the course of their career, sometimes across functions. So we are deeply invested in growing talent, in helping them to grow not just professionally but also personally. And I think that a great deal of time has been invested by me over the years. And I'm very happy because we seem to be reaping the benefit of that. We're very lucky to have a very talented, committed workforce that brings great enthusiasm to the work that they do day in and day out.
Among the business leaders and CEOs, who are your, so to speak, role models from around the world? Are there, contemporary domestic leaders or global leaders you turn to for advice, who you consult on tough problems, etc.?
So, to a large extent, we depend on each team's own knowledge, experience, intelligence about what's happening globally. And each of our teams in every business, I think, is very up to speed with what they need to know about what's happening globally, like I said, and the different factors that can impact us. Beyond that, without taking names, I mean, one one has friends who are, who head multinationals that are much larger than us globally, private equity funds, uh, heads of consultancies globally. So one has friends who one reaches out to for advice. But at the end of the day, I think that you've got to process all of that, and decisions have to be your own. You either benefit and take credit for that, or you bear the cross for sometimes making the wrong call.
Let's talk a little bit about consumer sector. You're a big player in fashion. You're now in luxury in a significant way. Gallery Lafayette. Um, you've entered jewelry. This is also a segment where consumer behavior is changing very rapidly with the rise of D2C online shopping. How do you see the landscape, and how do your group plan to tackle it?
So new sectors for us, but I think that the teams that have come together, and practically all of these are D2C. The new business that we have in the construction and building area space, jewelry retail. These are all sort of, especially the latter, is a consumer play in India. And as the consumers become more mature, more affluent, their tastes are changing, their spending patterns are changing, and we're kind of, wanting to uh, fill that gap and cash in on those opportunities. I see a very, very strong response, much stronger and positive, more positive than I had thought. I think the trust behind the brand plays a very important role in our case. Um, and I see growth happening far beyond what we had expected. So it's been a very good experience so far.
You're also entering sports and entertainment in a significant way. You've bought RCB with a little help from friends like Satyan, who is here. Birla Studios is making a very big movie soon. What are your plans in the sector?
So it's new, both are new, especially sports is completely new, where we partnered with so many sort of, outstanding marquee partners. We're still very new to the game. We're half a season old, so we are still learning and trying to get our arms around what it takes to tick in a business like that. I think we've been in software, entertainment software for a while, but again, the big screen is something that's new. It's again a consumer play. And it's basically a play on entertainment. Um, we have to just see how it goes. We've got to learn and take one step at a time.
Your two elder children are now emerging out of your shadows. They're quite well known. Ananya Birla is a big social media star, and she, manages her presence very well to market her own line of products and so on. Ariman is now getting into businesses. How do you look at their journeys? Do they turn to you for advice? When do we get to see them take a bigger and bigger role in your mainstay businesses?
So both have had very interesting journeys. My daughter Ananya, she started her own microfinance business when she was 19, so that's about 12 years ago. Is now the second largest microfinance company in the country. They're going in for a 3,000 crore IPO in a few months' time.
Are
My
you allowed to
son,
talk about that?
I don't know much about it, so I'd rather not. I'd better not talk about it. I'll be in trouble otherwise. Uh, what I've read about it, I mean, my daughter doesn't want to discuss it because she believes that it's something that she should own up to in terms of responsibility. Um, my son worked with me very intensely for 4 years. He then went on to do an MBA at Harvard and he came back last year. So both of them are now engaged with the group quite heavily. My son looks after two businesses. He looks after the renewables business and fashion retail. He also looks at new business opportunities. Ananya has been very now deeply involved in real estate and in our global trading businesses. I think that they both have experience in business from different perspectives. They don't both have an identity of their own. My son also runs independently. When I say independently, it's not a group investment because it isn't a charter for the group, which is FNB, which is an interesting consumer play. I think they're taking more and more independent calls in their respective decisions in their respective businesses. We are pretty well aligned. We know what we want to achieve in these businesses. So there is constant conversation. We're in the same office on the same floor. We live in the same house. So that's how it should be. But more and more, I think they'll have to take independent calls for the businesses that they are starting to run.
When they turn to you for advice and when you give advice, do you think they mostly take it or not really?
I think that they churn it around. They take it as an important input. Most often, they would sort of, go with it. Sometimes they might just have a different view, and we discussed that as well. And I think that it's a very sort of mature adult conversation as it should be.
But do you ever feel like one of them listen to you more than the other?
No, I don't think so. I think it depends on the issue rather than whether it's him or her. Sometimes they have strong opinions that aren't sort of similar as mine, and it's good to have a debate. And actually, at the end of the day, it's their call because they are now getting more and more involved in those businesses.
Wonderful, Mr. Birla. You run a very large and complex business, a lot of planning, a lot of capital allocation. Thank you so much for joining us here today and sharing with us a little bit about your life and business. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Mr. Kumar Birla.
Thank you. Wonderful to be here.